On this episode of the Inspirational Podcast, I am excited to have a returning guest who uses the power of her voice and her testimony to change the lives of others.
He took all the shame, the guilt, the ugliness, and he showed I was beautiful. I mean, he did. I would just never forget it.
Well, welcome to today's episode of the Inspirational Podcast. I have a returning guest with me, Miss Ella Mae Miller.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, that she's bold, she's beautiful, and she's back to share some testimonies with us. And I would just put this out there now. I'll probably repeat it again. You want to go back and check out a previous episode. Actually, then it was a deeper dive podcast. We'll have the information below so you can hear more of what Ella Mae shared with us before. But welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I'll say, just to give people that might be listening for the first time, you have a little different background than some. So you want to say what your background is?
Yeah, my background is being raised Amish. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So you were with the Amish how long? How many years?
It was 8 years this spring that we left the Amish. So, yeah.
How many years were you Amish?
I
guess.
don't know, ever since I was born.
Yeah. I'm going to get your age. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So at least 20 some years you
yeah.
were in the Amish community.
Probably 30 something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we hear a little accent,
Yeah.
and I already prepped her because I said I want to hear a little Pennsylvania Dutch in there too, because that's what you speak growing up.
Yeah, and I actually think that way yet, so I have a hard time sometimes translating it into English or whatever.
All right. Well, if the Pennsylvania Dutch comes out, it's okay. We'll just have you translate. So.
Yeah.
But you have so many testimonies of things that God has done in your life. And recently, you had yet another testimony that happened that, in fact, you were sharing on your Facebook page, your personal page. So I thought we might start with that because you promised an update in the podcast, and here it is. So maybe we can give a little background. This is about physical healing. So God, in the previous podcast, you talked about inner healing that God has brought to your life, which is absolutely amazing. And honestly, we all need inner healing in our lives from things that we've come through. And God is just so good with that. And it's made such an amazing difference in your life.
He sure has.
Yeah.
I couldn't be here without him.
There you go. And so today we're going to focus on a specific physical healing that God is in the process of doing. But you actually had 2 other testimonies of physical healing. We're not going to spend a lot of time, but just want to ask you to share what God's done in your life.
The first couple testimonies that he had healed me was in 2019, I was diagnosed with colon cancer, and which wasn't a surprise to me, but still it was shocking.
Yes.
And all the tests and stuff that the doctors had done, they said there's nothing to be worried about, but I knew it was. So they did a colonoscopy, and yes, the cancer was there. And I didn't do any radiation or chemo after surgery because I said I don't want that. And I'm still healed today.
Yeah.
And that's
I like
so
that
awesome.
testimony.
And then in the spring of 21, I was back to the doctors because I was still having stomach issues of eating raw vegetables and fruit and stuff like
Which
that.
usually is considered very good for you.
I know, and it was so weird because I had to stay away from that. And they did a lot of tests too, but I asked the doctor that prescribed colon cancer or the colonoscopy if you think I have stomach cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she just changed the the conversation
Yeah.
and said that don't scare me like you did last time, but she did schedule an upper GI, and over that time Pastor Mitch was preaching at church about praying for yourself. So I got a very different perspective to pray for myself, and in a couple days I could eat whatever I wanted. It was just amazing. I mean, to this day, it's just, I knew I was healed. I was so healed. And
So you actually prayed for yourself, for God to heal you.
Yeah, like totally a different way.
Yeah.
And I constantly prayed about, by his stripes I am healed.
There you go.
And it was just like, I prayed it over and over. And then I went for my upper GI test, and I told the guy that I'm healed, I don't need it. But of course I had to do it.
It was scheduled.
Yeah. And then a couple weeks later, after that, I was back to the doctor, and she said there was inflammation, there was infection, everything was inflamed, but it's dead. They had done a biopsy, and it's dead, they said. She just looked at me and said, "You're a miracle."
Ah, yes, you are. I love that.
It's so awesome.
That's amazing.
I know, because from colon cancer to, they think it was stomach cancer, which was dead, and it's just like.
So they saw the evidence that there was something there. There was something going on in your stomach, but it was dead. It was no longer
it's
affecting you.
And that I know it was Jesus. He healed me, and I knew it. I mean, I felt it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was, it's so awesome.
That is good. And I just want to take a moment in that before we move on to the most recent. So there's more miracles. But to say, when you were praying the scriptures over yourself, and I'm glad you gave that example, because I was going to ask you, for people that are listening and dealing with things, because we know people are. I mean, people need God's healing touch in many ways in their lives. And you took the Word of God and you prayed it over yourself. You made it personal.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never prayed like that before, because I felt guilty for asking
for yourself.
For myself. Yes. I felt so guilty. And even and back to, I mean, I don't want to go back to the colon.
But it's okay.
Cancer stuff, because the doctor said if I wouldn't have pushed for a test, a colonoscopy, in a year, it would have been too bad to cure.
Wow.
So they thanked me over and over that I pushed, even if the tests.
Okay.
You know, I know that was God pushing me. So if anybody feels that way, push forward.
There you
Demand
go.
for a test like I did, because they were just like, if you wouldn't have done that, a year it would have been uncurable.
Wow. Yeah.
So I just had to tell
So
that.
no, that's great. So God speaks to us today. Would you say
does.
that?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, he does. Like, very much. If you listen.
Yeah. And you do. And I'll say I will, listening to you.
Yeah. It's just amazing. I mean, I don't feel worthy that I am allowed to be healed, but my story's not over.
That's
so
right.
I'm worth it.
And that's right. And we know, too, that what God has done for you, he wants to do for each one of us, because God is no respecter of persons. That means what he does for one, he wants to do for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So listen to God's voice, because he still speaks today. He is speaking to us, and he communicates with us all the time if we just take time to listen. And so you did in several different ways. The colon cancer, you got the test, you got the screening and found out you had it. They took care of it.
Yeah.
Praise God. And
Amen.
so we move on to the most recent, which actually started several years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
Go ahead and tell us about that.
In 2014, they found a tumor on my brain. It wasn't cancerous, but it still grows slowly, like a slowly growing tumor.
Yeah.
And most times it has to be done surgery. So we had to check it every now and then. In 2017, they said we need to check it every year now. So it wasn't constantly a check, like every year. So in the spring of 22, it was too big.
Okay.
So
it had grown to the point
Yeah.
they said, it's too big, now we have to do something.
yeah, yeah. So we had to, my doctors were all in Mount Nittany, and they didn't have a brain surgeon. So
Okay.
they transferred us to Geisinger. They had a brain tumor doctor up at Mount Nittany, but they sent us the surgeon to Geisinger.
Okay.
So it was a very different atmosphere.
All right.
Like it wasn't like family, like it was just different.
Yes. It was
And-
people that you didn't know, hadn't
Yeah.
seen before. So you go in.
And it was just, I was just a number or something. It just didn't feel home
Yeah.
or like Mount Nittany. But then they made arrangements to do a radiation treatment. So in that year in May, I did one radiation treatment.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Only
And-
one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that was in 22 of that
May
year.
of 22.
Yeah. And they said that it takes about 8 months to see if it is stable or is it growing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, I had heart issues. And so they put off the MRI. But I still had like a phone call from the Geisinger doctor. And I told him, well, this gives me more time to pray.
Okay.
So to make it shrink. And he really got upset. And he said, well, we probably have to do surgery because it was that big. And he went on to explain it. And he was like, I said, well, I'll pray. And he said, well, prayers won't help. It never has and never will shrink or go away.
Wow.
Yeah, he was like very, very upset. I mean, so upset that I came off the phone and it felt like my whole world crashed.
Yeah. Because he wasn't giving you much hope.
No,
With
and I
that.
did not want surgery on my brain.
Right.
Who does?
Yeah, exactly.
So after that, I went back to the Mount Nittany brain tumor, and she said that I'm not sure.
Well, I think you finally had another MRI.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So-
Then I had another MRI first. Yeah, sorry. And then he a couple weeks later, he called me and said that it's shrank.
It got smaller.
Yeah, and he was like amazed. I said, well, I was praying. He said, yes, you were. And he...
So it was
I
the same
mean,
doctor calling
yeah,
you. Yes.
Yes, he
Yeah.
And he told me to tell the people that I said I got a lot of people to pray because after I got off the phone, I felt so hopeless. And then I was like, suddenly I'm not going to be hopeless. I'm going to get people to pray for me.
Amen.
And I did. And I mean, that video went wide.
I was going to say, you put
Oh,
that
yeah.
on Facebook too. So,
Yeah.
because you were asking people to pray.
And even like last spring at the story tour, somebody came up and said, we were praying for you. And I was like, it's somebody that I didn't even know.
Yeah. So people were praying. You
Yeah.
finally had an MRI, and the
Yeah.
doctor said it's shrinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said, I need to go for another MRI in a half a year. So I did last year in September. And he said it's still shrinking. And he was just like, okay. And
Did he think that it was, from the radiation?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I said, well, I've been praying, he said, and I said, I will pray that it will be dissolved by the next time. And he said, well, it never happened, but he was a little bit different then.
He's seeing something is changing.
Yeah, and then that's when I went back to the Mount Nittany brain tumor doctor, and she was like, I said how he acted and upset. He said, well, it never happened. I've never seen it, never heard a tumor like this shrink. She said, I understand.
Wow.
And I said, well, I've been praying. And she said, well, I believe in the power of prayer, and you're a miracle.
Wow,
And
there you go.
I know. I said it was Jesus. It was. I mean, I was like, you can't.
Yes. And so the testimony's not over, because then I think there was something else that just happened recently.
Yes. So last year, I didn't have to have another MRI for another year. So, yes, in September of this year, this month.
Yeah, was it? Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
So just at the beginning of September.
Yeah.
2024.
14. September 14, I went for an MRI, and then a couple days later, I had another phone call from him, and he said, it was still shrinking. I'll never forget. He was so friendly, and I was like, he said, 2 years ago, the radiation is still working. I said, well, that was God.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the radiation.
Yes.
It was God. I know it was. And it's just like, and I said, well, I've been praying. He said, well, I appreciate prayers, and God does these things. And this is the man that said, prayers won't help. It never has and never will.
Wow.
And he's now saying God does these things. He appreciates prayers. He said, I could use all the prayers I could get. I need all the prayers I can get. And I said, well, I've been praying for you since I met you. So he was like, it's just so amazing. It's just, I can't really describe how I feel, but it's just like, God made what the doctors meant were impossible. God made it possible.
There you go.
It's just,
yeah. They said it was impossible, that it wouldn't shrink and keep shrinking like that.
yeah. And it's still.
And it is.
Yeah. And they were so determined to do surgery. And I was
Yes.
like, no.
Yeah. And now you don't need surgery.
Yeah, and I don't need to go back for a year and a half.
All right.
I mean, it's just, God is so good.
Yes, he is.
It's just, I then asked him, like, plainly, and asked him, I understand these kind of tumors don't shrink. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, they don't. They never have, and never seen one. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, well, we take all the positive tests.
So he wouldn't quite say it, but he said there's power in prayer.
Yeah, and he said, I need all the prayers I can get. And it's just, I don't understand why,
Yeah. So to people that might be listening today to this, what would you say to them if they are dealing with some kind of physical disease, ailment, cancer? What would you say to them?
With everything, God is possible. And don't give up praying. Get people to pray for you and share your struggles, your sickness, whatever you're dealing with. Just share it so people can pray, because God puts people in your life to help you and pray for you. And talk with Jesus. Talk about it to him.
Yeah.
He will listen, because he did with me. And I mean, it was like this doctor went from saying prayer doesn't help to saying he needs prayer.
Yes.
It helps.
Yes.
I didn't. It was worth going through it. It was. Even though I don't want a tumor, I don't want to deal with it.
No.
I went through doubts and fears and everything you could think of. But it's worth just seeing that the doctor changed his ways and claims God answers prayers.
Yes.
I mean, he changed.
Yes.
And I'm honored to be a servant of Jesus, to do this, even if it means going through trials and stuff, but to see someone's life change like this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. And I hope you hear this, because we all go through trials, temptations. I mean, it's said, in this life, you'll suffer persecution, trials. But to know that when you don't lose your faith, which you didn't, you held on to faith. And in fact, you kind of dug in even more to your faith. And you said, I'm going to get people praying. I'm going to get this out there because I know I need prayer. And you held on to your faith, continued to declare it, even to a doctor who's saying, that doesn't work. And God is faithful, and I just feel like that's why we do these things. You remind me so much of the Samaritan woman in John 4, the woman at the well, when Jesus went to her and he was talking to her, and she realized it was Jesus, and she just went off and told everybody about what Jesus had done in her life. And it says, because of her testimony, people came to find Jesus, to know him and encounter him because of one woman's testimony. And I believe that's what God's doing through your life. And not just with physical healings, but we've got more testimonies that we're going to come back to in just a moment, of things God is doing through your life, in your life, that is bringing people closer to Jesus and bringing freedom into their lives. So we'll be right back in just a moment.
You are one of thousands of people enjoying the content produced by Christ Community Church's C3 Media. First, we wanted to say thank you and let you know it's our pleasure to serve you. As a nonprofit organization, we are always looking for strategic and financial partners. If you are benefiting from our content, we ask that you consider partnering with us. Even a small donation like $1 per week will go a long way. Also, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your continued support, and we know God has a great plan for your life.
Well, welcome back, and we're ready for more. Hope you are, with Ella Mae Miller. So, Ella Mae, there is a ministry now that you have started, and I think probably since the last time we talked, there's been quite a few things happening. And so before we jump into it, I just want to remind you, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, I encourage you to go back. It's Deeper Dive Podcast, Season 2, Episode 19, and it's entitled, Jesus Set Me Free.
He sure did.
Yes, there you go. He sure did, she said. So I would encourage you to go back and hear what Ella Mae shared then. But before we talk about the ministry that you have started, that God's entrusted to you, maybe you can just give a little background for those who haven't heard your story. What caused you to say, I want to do this. I want to bring light into the darkness.
Okay. I was raised Amish, and I was sexually abused like a small kid. And you don't have a voice when you're Amish with a small kid, when you're sexually abused or abused in any kind of way. Mm-hmm. So this really brought me, I want to be a voice for them. Mm-hmm. So after we left the Amish, I just, even before we started, we reported stuff and went to the ministers and stuff, but of course we were shut down.
Mm-hmm. Now you're saying with that, so you did go to people within the Amish community when you were being abused, and in that community you go to like the ministers or bishops?
The bishop and the minister. I didn't go to them until after we were married, because then I kind of heard that I thought I was the only one being abused. Mm-hmm. And then I heard that there were more people abused, and we were married already, and I was not going to stop. I was not going to be quiet because I did not want them to go through what I had to go through.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a voice. I wanted to help. And so I did go, and I was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So, which led us to leave the Amish.
Yeah. Well, you were basically shunned
Yeah.
from the Amish,
Yeah.
which is just so people know that's the term.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be quiet. You wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah, they told me to forgive and stop talking. We need to forgive and forget and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't, because I was not going to, because I couldn't. I knew what the little children were going through.
Yeah.
And I was not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And the more they told me to stop, the more I did.
The more you used your voice that God has given you.
And then we went to the law enforcement, and that really was bad in their eyes.
In the eyes of the Amish, when you went kind of outside the community.
Yeah, because they like to do their own way of taking care of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's pretty much, as far as abuse goes, it's be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not quiet. You have a voice that God has given you.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing now?
Well, I always, after we left the Amish, I always wanted to help. Yeah, they're still my people.
Yes.
I mean, my thoughts go back. If I want to help somebody, they're still my people. So I did classes, and I started interpreting for people, and I started a ministry of bringing light into the darkness.
Okay, so let's pause first, because there's a lot of pieces to this. You did classes, and the classes were for what?
Interpreting. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I went
But
too
it was so you could do it within the legal system?
Yeah, with the FBI and the police and whatever, law enforcement and children and youth, whatever I needed to do. Yeah.
Okay. And this, just so, again, for people that don't know, that don't live around here or around Amish, because there are people that don't live in those communities, you have your own language.
Yes, which is Pennsylvania Dutch.
Yes. I already told her I'm going to have her speak it. But we'll get to that. And so for the interpretation, it's if children would come that have been abused, you're able to help them because you understand Pennsylvania Dutch, but you also speak English.
Yeah.
So you're able to help with that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and they are very glad that I wanted to. I mean, there's a certain age that they then kind of start learning English.
Okay.
You know.
Would you say, is that?
It's usually when they're 6 or 7, when they start school, they pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah. But that also varies from community to community because some speak English at their home. But where I came from, I didn't know much of anything till I went to school.
Okay. That's when you started learning English.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've actually had, because I was with you, you were able to help a family that came in recently within, let's say, Center County, and you were able to interpret for the young kids. So you were able to be a voice for those kids.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
I was very happy to do it, but that evening I cried more for myself. I mean, for me when I was a little girl.
Yes.
Because I didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
I wanted so badly for people to understand and know what I'm going through, that they will listen and they will believe me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was nervous, but I was very, very happy to help. I mean, it felt like I was doing something for my people.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I really struggled that my little me didn't have that.
Yes.
And that's what I want to do. I want to be the voice for the people the little children that don't have a voice.
Yeah. And you're doing it. You've started doing that. Yeah.
God has been opening doors since I said yes, and I've been following him. It's just amazing how he's been opening doors. And
So can you talk about some of the different things you've done to help let people know you're here?
yeah, we've been handing out cards and parades and stuff like that, and it was
You
awesome.
have one of these cards here.
Yeah, these are the ones that I
Okay.
we
So
put
for-
in a baggie with a couple candies in it and hand them out in the parades. Yeah.
Okay. So for people that may just be listening, what do your cards say?
My card says, "Does someone hurt you? Are you sad? You matter. I was hurt and sad too. I am here for you. I care for you."
Okay.
It's very simple, but that's where I was raised up. They are very simple English. They don't know the big words that
Yes.
I struggle with too. And it really, for me, if I would have had found that, I would have grabbed it and clung on it for life, even if I
Okay.
couldn't even have done anything.
Yeah.
You know, just knowing somebody was there for me and knew
Wow.
that they were going through it. I know this, if I would have picked this up or somebody gave to me, it would be in shreds because I would have clung on to it like
Wow.
for life.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's-
that would
it
have
was
been
a
my hope.
lifeline.
Yeah.
Would have been a lifeline for you.
So,
but now,
yeah. So that's why that's what I want to do. I mean, I know there's so many children out there that's hurting, that
Yeah.
are being abused among the Mennonites and the Amish, and they need us.
yes.
Not just me. They need everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's not just, I mean, we're focusing on these communities, the Amish Mennonite things, because that's what you grew up in, Amish
Yeah.
community. But knowing really there's so much
Yeah.
child abuse and even sex trafficking. In fact, I just heard somebody say the other day on a different podcast that I think the U.S. now has the highest number of people that get sex trafficked. Like the most of it happens within the U.S. We always thought it was in other countries,
Yeah.
but it happens right here. And a lot of it, they say, is by family members.
That's a lot, yeah.
And that's what you found in the
Yeah,
Amish.
It's true, yeah. And we've also been like putting these on at sheets, bathrooms, everywhere.
Yeah.
And we know, like, we got some feedback, like, or my husband did, from some men that they like memorized it. They knew
Wow.
what the card was.
There you
Because
go.
he was like, well, "What do you mean?" When they asked us, they thanked him that what we're doing, and he was like, "What do you mean?" And he had memorized this
Wow.
card.
Yeah. So the word's getting out.
Oh yeah, and we get also other feedback, but that's fine. We
Yes.
will. Jesus did too.
Yes.
When he came and told the truth.
Yes. And
So-
not everybody liked it.
No, no, they did not. So they won't like me either. So
Yes.
it's
But
okay.
I think you've found, even over this past year, that some of the people that didn't like you so much before for speaking up have now been coming back around a little bit,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
which is
Awesome.
different. Yes.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. And so you're
Yeah.
doing that. And I want to make sure, too, to talk about, because I think you said you also know sign language. That's
Yes.
a part of what you know. So
We grew up when we went to school. We had like deaf children in our class, or in
Okay.
it's just like a one-room school room, you know, from 1st to 8th, and there were a couple children in the schoolroom that were deaf, so the whole school had to do sign language, even if it wasn't in your grade. So we signed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
and so
yeah.
now that's something that you can do for
Yeah.
people if they just know sign language. You're able to interpret that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tremendous skill to have, and I've said this different parts of my life. Like, God doesn't waste anything, you know. And so in school, you're probably wondering, why am I learning this? What am I going to do with this? I mean, you knew it at the moment because of people
Yeah.
in your class, but the fact that something you learned at a young age, you're able to now use to help other people.
Yeah. We used them like normal, they were normal children to us. So
Yes.
And I just remember, I just need to say it. I don't, it just came thought. When we were little children, I remember my dad saying at the supper table or dinner table, you guys would say, is like if he and mom had wanted to have a conversation they didn't want us kids to know, they talked in English. And then he said when we started going to school and started this sign language, we signed at the table when we were eating, we had to stop, and he said we then didn't know what they were saying. I know he loved to tell people that, and I don't know why that came to my mind, but it just
No,
did.
it's great because it was coming to my mind too, and it just segues right into something I wanted to make sure we bring up, that we're working on a book.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that we will help you publish to get the word out there, to share some of your upbringing. And I remember in that the story, because that was coming to mind too, because you and your friends or your siblings would get into trouble because you were talking in sign language, your own secret language. And parents didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So, but that brings about, being able to share a little bit about the book. And, why is it on your heart to do this?
To have a book.
Yeah.
I often wanted to, I love reading. And that's just something else that the Amish do. A lot of them. They read. For sure, winter times is reading evenings and stuff, but it didn't matter if it was winter or summer for me. And I just want to write about how an Amish life is and how I was... I had my good memories and I had my bad memories, and I just want to reach out to people with that.
Yes. Yeah, because it is interesting as one who is helping to put this together. I love just hearing some of the stories of the fun things that you did and how it's so different from our lives. But then you also have parts of it where you're talking about some of the things that you went through, some of the abuse, and not having a voice at that time and not having people to stand up for you. And you also talk about it, and I want to touch on this. Again, we talked about this more in the previous podcast about the inner healing that God did in your life, has done. And I think just to give that hope to people that are listening to this who have gone through trauma. And when you've been sexually abused, it's very traumatic to your soul. It touches you, and to get healing from that. Usually it takes many, many years of counseling to begin to heal from that. But God did something for you. And so if you can just share, I guess, the results of...
Yeah, when I did like inner healing, I knew I needed to do it to heal. But the worst memories are the ones I love going back, because I found out Jesus was there. They were not abusing me. It's so clear that they weren't abusing me. They were abusing Jesus.
Yeah.
And I got healing. I got healed from that, and I just love it that he showed up every time. He was there with me, crying with me, being hurt, and just
with you.
Yeah.
And so just to clarify, for people that this may be new to, the abuse did happen to you. You went through those things. But when you prayed and you had somebody praying with you, and this is something that I also take people through, and we just ask Jesus in the middle of those painful times in our lives, where were you? Show yourself. And he will.
He will.
Yeah, because he did.
He sure did.
And he, in those visions that he would give you, took your place. Just like when we say he took our place on the cross. When we come to know Jesus as Savior and we realize, he died on the cross for us. He took our place because we're the ones that sinned. Jesus lived a sinless life. So we say we're the ones that should have died on the cross. Exactly. We had that penalty to pay, but he took our place. and paid the price that we could never pay in order that we can have a relationship with God. He took our sin and gave us his righteousness. And he said, now we can stand before God pure, holy. And so that's what he did for you in those memories. He said, no, I'm taking the pain on myself. I'm taking the abuse on myself so that you don't have to continue to suffer the pain of those memories.
Yeah. And he also took all the shame, the guilt, the ugliness, and showed me I was beautiful.
I think you need to say that again. That's powerful.
He took all the shame, the guilt, the ugliness, and he showed I was beautiful. I mean, he did. I would just never forget it.
Yeah. So for people that are listening,
you're beautiful no matter what happened. I mean, no matter the guilt, the shame, the whatever you're going through, you're beautiful because God made you beautiful.
Amen to that.
It's just...
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So that's what God is doing.
Yeah.
And so is there anything else?
Yes.
Please.
We also put these at the horse sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So some of in this community, you're
Yeah.
talking about the horse auctions
Yeah.
that happen. And
we've been putting these cards in there too.
yeah, like taking them and putting them in the bathrooms
Or giving
handing them
yeah.
out. Yeah. And so you had a recent, even not that, but another recent big fair around here, the Grange Fair.
Oh, yeah.
That you went out and handed some more of those out.
Yeah, that was so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you had a lot of positive, you had
Yeah,
kids.
we did. Yeah, we had kids involved, and that just made it just more meaningful.
Yeah.
Because it was so awesome.
It's for the kids.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, for everyone too.
Yes.
I mean, this is also, I don't want them, for anything I'm doing, I'm not trying to make them leave the Amish or the Mennonites.
That's a good point.
That's not my point at all. I just want them to be, this stuff being brought to the light, and they don't need to suffer. They can feel safe. They can feel beautiful. They can be... They don't need to be always looking behind their shoulder or just living in fear, because I lived in fear all the time.
Yeah.
And that they know that there's people here that will help them.
Yes.
And they are loved. So it's not that I want them to leave the Amish or the Mennonites.
Right.
No, not at all. But they just need to know there's hope there. Hope and help there, which comes from Jesus, coming to know Jesus, and getting connected with the right people.
Yes. So that they can stand up, they can have people stand up for them and hopefully bring change so that they don't have to live their lives in fear.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they can have freedom.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that comes through Jesus.
True.
Yeah.
And there's Amish that are starting to stand up. You know, they're more and more Amish eyes are being opened, and they actually believe it now. But yeah, it's slowly coming around.
So to wrap this up, because we're running out of time already, I'm going to ask you if first you would even maybe share this, or if there's something you want to say to any Amish children that may come across this, and actually even say it in Pennsylvania Dutch a little bit, but then share in English after that with people that are listening. And even what it says on your card. How would you say that?
Does someone hurt you? Do det bara dich weh? Do det bara dich weh? And ich var väger du var av, and ich bin då för dig. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. But what would you say then to anybody that may come across this, that's hurting, or that may be trapped in an abusive place, or experience physical abuse, sexual abuse, any of that?
You mean in Pennsylvania Dutch?
No,
Or-
you can say it in English.
I'm sorry, you-
We'll make it easier. I just had to hear a little Pennsylvania Dutch in there.
I would say find somebody you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, first of all, learn to know Jesus. But if you don't know that way, find somebody that does. And just be open with them if you feel you can trust them. Because the trust is a very big thing if you get abused.
Yes. Yeah. And if they don't have anybody around them that they can trust, can
Then-
they reach out
Oh,
to
yeah.
you?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go.
24/7. I don't care what time it is. I'm here for them. And if they need a listening ear or just being rescued,
Yeah.
I'll be there. Yeah, and yeah.
And so to help encourage them, to give them a nugget of hope, what would you say to them about their future? What does Jesus have for them?
Freedom.
Okay.
Love. I mean, your story's not over if you're trapped, because he will use it to help others. And just keep praying and leaning into Jesus. He will open a door at the right time for you.
And how does he see them?
Beautiful and special. And he loves you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally loves you. Even if you don't feel like nobody's there, nobody loves you. He loves you. He's always there for you.
There you go. Good. That's good news. So I hope you hear that if you're listening today. God loves you. He's got a great plan for your life. No matter what you might be going through, just like Ella Mae shared, just a few things that she encountered in her life, things that in the natural, you might want to give up or just think, well, my life's not going to amount to much because I've had this happen and that happen. God has a great plan and purpose for your life. And no matter what anybody has done or what you have done, that doesn't change God's plan for your life. If you come to him, if you say, Jesus, I want to know you, reveal yourself to me, he's going to answer that prayer. He's going to send healing to you. He's going to bring people into your life that can help you have this relationship with him, because he loves you, he's created you, and he has a great plan for your life. So on that note, we're going to wrap up today, and I want to encourage you to come back and join us for the next Inspirational Podcast. And until then, take care and God bless.
You are one of thousands of people enjoying the content produced by Christ Community Church's C3 Media. First, we wanted to say thank you and let you know it's our pleasure to serve you. As a nonprofit organization, we are always looking for strategic and financial partners. If you are benefiting from our content, we ask that you consider partnering with us. Even a small donation like $1 per week will go a long way. Also, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your continued support, and we know God has a great plan for your life.